Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to Pagan Tales. During the month of February, we will be getting to know various deities who are associated with romantic love, and today we are beginning with the Celtic god Angus. Don't be too put off by his name, which may bring to mind a breed of cow, because Angus is really a rather interesting figure. To begin with, let's cover some basic information. Angus, sometimes called Angus Og, meaning Angus the Young, is the son of the Dagda and Boann, goddess of the river Boyne. Now, this was all very naughty, because the Dagda and Boann were having an extramarital affair, and it would have caused endless problems if that had become commonly known. So, to get around this, the Dagda held the sun in the sky for 9 months, so technically Angus was conceived and born within one day, and Boann's husband was none the wiser. Her husband, Elkmar, he was a judge of the Tuatha De Dan. He was Angus's stepfather, and Angus had several siblings. First, Medea, who actually became Angus's foster father, and who looked after him after he was born, as well as the goddess Bridget and the god Kermit. Angus married Caer Ibormeth, a princess, which we'll get into their story in a moment. And later in life, Angus had a foster son called Diarmund Ua Diebe. Angus is considered to be a god of youth, love, and poetic inspirations. Now, despite being a god of love, Angus did not begin his journey by being lucky in love. It so happened that Angus and his brother and foster father Medea both developed affection for a mortal woman who was named Etienne. She was beautiful and she captivated them both, but in the end it was Medea who won her heart and hand. However, Medea was already married, and his first wife, Fuamak, was understandably furious beyond measure. Fuamak was skilled in magic, and so her solution to this problem was to transform Etienne into a fly, and then with a strong gust of wind forced Etienne to fly away. Angus, however, was able to recognize Etienne in her fly form, and even though he couldn't or didn't restore her appearance, he did everything in his power to bring her back to health and to look after her. Unfortunately, Etienne landed on the cup of a woman who was the wife of the warrior Etar, and this woman unknowingly swallowed Etienne and thus became pregnant, but poor Etienne died in the process. Angus was bereft. He swore revenge. Which he did get. He hunted down Fuamak and he decapitated her for what she had done to Etienne. So time passed, and Angus began to have dreams of a rather beautiful girl, and she was so lovely that Angus fell head over heels for her. He was sure she was a real being and not just the invention of his imagination, and he was so convinced of this that he was actually able to persuade his parents, both the Dagda and Boann, to help him search for her. A year went by without success, and Angus's parents decided to enlist some help. Another year after that passed, and then King Bogdurg of Munster, who was a friend of the Dagda, managed to find the girl of Angus's dream, and he actually discovered her name, Caer Ibormeth. Immediately, Angus went away to fetch her. He came to a lake that was called the Dragon's Mouth, and he was confronted with this rather bizarre scene. There were 150 women there, and they were all bound in chains, and he was informed by their captors that the women, after Samhain, would have to spend a year living as swans. Angus and the captors then came to an arrangement, because Angus was just sure that his beloved was amongst this crowd of women. So the deal was that if Angus could recognize his woman after she transformed into a swan, he would then be free to take her away and marry her. So Samhain passes, the women were transformed into the form of swans, and Angus turned himself into a swan, and he began to call for Caer Ibormeth. They found each other, and then they sang together this beautiful song that was so soothing that their captors slept for 3 days, and they got away. So while Angus did not find his happily ever after at once, he was fortunate enough to find it at last. It's also fitting that the swans feature prominently in this story, because swans, as you're probably aware, they mate for life. And that indicates to us that Angus and Caer Ibormeth's bond was permanent, stable, and devoted. And as we are entering our own culture's season of romance, it's worthwhile to reflect upon the idea of romantic feelings that last, love that makes it over the long haul, love that can sustain a marriage, can rise to the occasion of raising a family together, and whatever else that life happens to throw into the path. That has much greater value than any short lived fling or a relationship that's cold, clinical, and transactional. And it's worth taking that into consideration when contemplating our own love lives. So that's what I have for you about the god Angus. Next week, we will discuss Aphrodite because we cannot have a month devoted to romance and not mention the Greek goddess of love. So hopefully you'll be back for that. In the meantime, any comments or observations you have, leave them for me in the comments section below. Or if you'd like to have a more extended conversation, feel free to email me at brigantiablackbird@protonmail.com and I'll respond to you there. But that'll do it for now, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.